I ignored my cute neighbor for 7 months. Not because I didn't notice her. I noticed everything. The way she always held the elevator door. The soft good morning she never skipped. The smile she gave even when I pretended to be busy on my phone. But after my last heartbreak, I had promised myself one thing. No attachments, no hopes, no risks. So I nodded. Sometimes I didn't even do that. 7 months passed like that. Then one rainy evening, as I was unlocking my door, I heard her voice behind me. "Hey, can I ask you something?" I turned around. She looked nervous. Not shy, nervous. Like this wasn't easy for her. "Did I do something wrong?" she asked quietly. "You never talk to me." That hit harder than I expected. I shook my head.
No.
"It's not you." There was a pause. Long enough to hear the rain hitting the windows. Then she smiled, gentle, understanding. "Well, if it's not me," she said, "would you like to have coffee sometime? Just coffee. Not a date. Not pressure. Just two people talking." I almost said no. Out of habit. Out of fear. But something in her eyes said this wasn't about romance. It was about being human. "Yeah," I said. "I'd like that." We met at a small cafe downstairs. Nothing fancy. We talked about work. About bad movies. About why elevators always break at the worst times. And then she said something I didn't expect. "I lost someone last year," she said. "Sometimes people think silence means disinterest, but I've learned it often means pain." I looked at my coffee. Then I told her the truth. About my past. About why I kept my distance. She didn't judge. She didn't rush me. She just listened. When we stood up to leave, she smiled again. The same smile as always. But this time, it felt different. "Next time," she said, "you don't have to ignore me." I laughed. For the first time in a long while. Sometimes, healing doesn't come from being alone. It comes from someone brave enough to ask for coffee. The next morning, I saw her again in the hallway. Same place. Same light. But everything felt different. She smiled first this time. Not the polite kind, this one was warm.
Familiar.
"Good morning," she said. "Morning," I replied, and surprised myself by meaning it. All day her words stayed in my head. Not the coffee, not the laughter, but what she said about silence and pain. That evening, I heard a knock on my door. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened it, she stood there holding 2 paper cups. "Peace offering," she said, "in case today was hard." I hesitated, then stepped aside. She noticed the little things. The empty walls. The half-unpacked boxes. The quiet that felt heavier than it should. "You live like someone who's planning to leave," she said gently. I didn't argue. We sat on opposite ends of the couch, coffee cooling between us. "I didn't ask you for coffee because I was lonely," she said. "I asked because you looked like someone who needed to be seen." That broke something open inside me. I told her how I used to be different. How I laughed easily. How I trusted without fear. And then one day, I said, "I stopped." She nodded. "Me too." We didn't touch. We didn't promise anything. When she stood to leave, she paused at the door. "I'm not asking you to change," she said. "Just don't disappear." After she left, my apartment felt quieter than ever. But for the first time in months, the silence didn't feel empty. Felt like space. And somehow that scared me more than being alone. A week passed. Not the rushed kind. The slow, careful kind where every day feels like it's testing you. We didn't text constantly. No good morning messages. No late night calls. Just small moments. A shared smile by the elevator. A wave from the parking lot. 2 strangers learning how not to be strangers anymore. Then one night the power went out. The hallway lights died. The building went quiet, too quiet. I opened my door at the same time she opened hers. "Guess it's one of those nights," she said, holding her phone like a flashlight. We ended up sitting on the stairs, talking in the dark. She told me about her childhood, about moving cities too often, about learning not to unpack her heart too quickly. I told her about the night I learned how silence can be safer than honesty. At some point, she stopped talking and just listened. "You know," she said softly, "I used to think strong people don't need anyone.
Ich glänzte her.
Now I think strong people just choose carefully." The lights came back on. Neither of us moved. When we finally stood, our hands brushed. We both noticed. We both pretended not to. At her door, she hesitated. "Tomorrow," she said, "there's a small cafe by the park. Not for coffee, for courage." I smiled. "Tomorrow." She went inside. I stood there longer than I should have, because for the first time in 7 months, I wasn't afraid of what might happen next. I was afraid of missing it. The next day, I almost didn't go. Old habits don't disappear overnight. Fear has a quiet voice, but it's persistent. I stood in front of the mirror longer than necessary, not fixing my hair, just asking myself one question. Are you ready to stop hiding? At exactly 5:12 p.m., I walked to the cafe near the park. She was already there.
No dramatic entrance.
No movie-style moment. Just her. Sitting by the window, sunlight catching her hair, stirring a cup she hadn't touched yet. When she saw me, she didn't wave wildly. She just smiled. And somehow that felt bigger than anything. "You came," she said. "Yeah," I replied. "I almost didn't." "I know," she said softly. That surprised me. "You have this look," she continued, "like you're always halfway between staying and leaving." I exhaled slowly. She wasn't guessing. She was seeing. We didn't talk about heartbreak this time. We talked about dreams. She wanted to open a small bookstore someday. A quiet place with soft lights and secondhand novels. I told her I used to write, before life got loud. "You should start again," she said. "Maybe." "No," she corrected gently. "Definitely." Then she did something unexpected. She reached across the table, not to grab my hand, but to slide a small notebook toward me. "I bought it this morning," she said. "In case you said yes." I looked at it. Blank pages. Possibility. "I don't want to rush you," she added. "I just don't want fear making decisions for you anymore." That line stayed with me. We walked back slowly, not touching, not labeling anything. At her door, she turned to me. "I'm not trying to fix you," she said. "I just don't want you to shrink." For a moment, I saw what this really was. It wasn't romance racing forward. It was two people choosing not to run. And this time, when our hands brushed, I didn't pull away, and neither did she. That night, after she went inside, I didn't rush back to my apartment. I sat on the stairs for a while, holding the notebook she'd given me. For 7 months, I had survived by staying closed, by convincing myself that quiet was peace. But peace isn't the same as living. I opened the notebook. The first page stayed blank for a long time. Then I wrote one sentence. Today I chose to stay. The next morning, I knocked on her door. Not with coffee. Not with excuses. Just honesty. She opened it, surprised. "I'm not good at this," I said. "At letting people in. At saying things before it's too late." She listened, like she always did. "I can't promise I won't get scared," I continued. "But I don't want to disappear anymore." She smiled, not relieved, not excited. Just calm. "That's all I wanted," she said. "For you to be here." We didn't rush into labels. We didn't rewrite our lives overnight. Some evenings were quiet. Some days were heavy. But now the silence had a heartbeat. Months later, we still sat in that same cafe by the park, sometimes talking, sometimes writing side by side. And every time she reached for her coffee, our hands met, not by accident anymore. I ignored my cute neighbor for 7 months, not because I didn't care, but because I was healing. And she didn't rush me. She just waited with coffee, hot beverage,